All right. We now have Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on the line with me. He also runs a group called CAVPAC, which he's chairman of that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to start with Virginia. Secretary, great to have you back on the broadcast. Let's speak about what most of the nation, I think, politically will be talking about today, which is this race in Virginia. Is there anything in the race that has caught your eye so far? Do you think this could potentially be a bellwether for what's ahead in 2022? Do you think this puts a win for the Democrats, puts Biden in a much better position? I think it probably does, but any thoughts?
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me on. My observation of this race in Virginia is that the American people are sick and tired of what they've seen these last 9 months. And frankly, even before that, from the progressive movement, they saw a government that wanted to control kids. And the central issue has been this idea of, are kids just creatures of the state? Do they belong to the government? Does the government get to tell parents exactly what those kids learn? And I've seen parents all across the state of Virginia. I went out and campaigned alongside Governor Youngkin. I hoped Governor Youngkin. And I watched parents just react to the fact that McAuliffe and Biden and all the folks who came in, the vice president, the president, all who came into the state, all campaigned on the central idea. Somehow this is a culture war item. This is not about culture. And so I think this is a bellwether in the sense of, I think Americans have been awakened to what's happening in our schools. They're being taught that there's an oppressor class. We all know that's wrong. And I think that's why you're seeing the good results that I know we're going to see today. Whether it'll end up being enough, I suppose, is hard to know. We'll find out tonight. But make no mistake about it, I think the American people don't like the way the country is headed and are looking for a reasonable, balanced, capable, conservative leadership. And I think that's what Glenn Youngkin has presented to the people of Virginia.
Yeah, I think Terry McAuliffe is in a way a overly familiar face, a Democrat machine politician for as long as I follow politics. I'm in my mid-30s. He's been around, and his closing argument seems to be that everyone is Trump, and that if you are Trump, then you're racist, and that basically it seems to be it. It's just so thin, and I don't know if even if he was going to sell that he would be the guy to sell it. And you've got Glenn Youngkin, who is making the race about education, about critical race theory, about unnecessary lockdowns, and basically trying to build a much broader coalition. Just seems like total contrast in terms of quality of messaging.
Yeah, I think that's very true. But remember, too, Alex, this is not just a political message. This is their theory of life. Right? This is that they view life through a perspective of groups, not of individuals and liberty. Right? They want everything characterized by race. Even just last night, McAuliffe was talking about the fact that, boy, we just have too many white teachers in our schools.
Yeah.
This isn't something that's in the tradition of America. That we know Virginia's history. Right? It's this amazing state where so many of our founders cut their teeth on ideas of freedom and liberty and individual autonomy and dignity. I think that still carries over today. And so even in these places where Republicans have struggled for not just the last 2 and 4 years, but for the last 10 and 15 years, people are saying, no, this is not who we are. And so I'm looking for a good outcome today.
The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, you're now in charge also of the National Republican Redistricting Trust, which is such a big deal because this is a way to make the Democrats have more safe seats and to have them not be contested by people who oppose them at all politically. And then it's just a matter of organizing their money and in order to preserve safe seats. Tell us how important this initiative is and what your role is in it.
So Governor Christie and I were asked to take on a task that, frankly, Republicans hadn't done for a long time. President Obama and Eric Holder have run a group that for 10 years has run circles around us. We were weak. We turned the other cheek, and we let them redraw lines all across America and gerrymander districts in a way at the congressional level and, frankly, state legislative districts as well. Those are important. We can see, too. We decided we'd stand up and account for the Republican vision of fair lines, so people could vote for the candidates that shared their value set. We have raised money. We have now built a team of professional lawyers. When the left does what they inevitably do, they will take these districts that matter and they will sue until they are blue. They will litigate. They will fight. They'll go to court.
Yeah.
And we just, before we said, gosh darn it, we're just going to settle. We said enough. We're going to stand up to these. We've told state legislators, if you'll fight, we will fight alongside you. And so we've had great state legislators take real risk to make sure they get good, fair maps. These maps matter an awful lot, Alex. You know this. They last a decade, and they have a dispositive outcome in some cases on not only individual races, but on who has the gavel, who gets to set the agenda. And we can't have Nancy Pelosi in charge. This agenda is too radical. And Governor Christie and I are working hard to make sure we get good, compact, constitutional districts that really represent the people of their particular region.
What is your advice to Republican-led state legislatures around America on this matter? Should they fight? Is this one where you need to be diplomatic? Is this one where you want to be as tough as possible? How does it even work?
No, this is a knife fight. This is something that we cannot roll over and accept of the Obama holder vision for what America should look like. If you look at some of these districts, the map that the governor presented in Illinois, I mean, it's just sick. It's often, even the federal district court threw it out in a heartbeat.
Wow.
So I tell every Republican state legislator, you have to make sure these are good, decent maps that are right and fair. And when the left says, no, we're not going to do that because they control the state legislature, or these things they call, quote, independent, end of quote, commissions, but we have to stop them. And we will be there. You haven't had this before, but we'll be there. We'll be there with good, capable, skilled assistance, both rhetorically and legally, and the resources you need to fight. You won't be hung out to dry. You won't be left in the lurch. You won't lose without a fight. Pick up the cudgel, put your helmet on, get out there, and go get this right for the people you're tasked with representing.
Yeah, that's the exact message I think the grassroots conservatives need to hear on an individual basis. What can people in audiences like this do to get involved?
Make sure you know what's going on in redistricting and call your state assemblyman, your state representative, your state senator, whatever you have in your state, and tell them, no, don't let Obama holder run you over. Don't cower in the corner. Go fight. Go make sure you get a district that works and actually delivers for the people that you are responsible for. We've watched this Holder Obama debacle unfold, and Governor Christie and I decided enough. We're going to go take this on. We've now been pretty successful at marshaling the resources. We now need every American understanding how important this redistricting is, not only for these congressional races, as I said before, but we've all seen this, right? County commission seats, aldermen, city council races. These folks are drawing bad maps, unconstitutional maps, unfair, more importantly, unfair maps all across the country. We can't let that happen.
That's wise words and definitely a worthy cause. I want to get back in the news a little bit. I was watching Tony Blinken again get what appeared to be yet another swirly from the Chinese yesterday, and I know that he is your Democrat counterpart of the role you held previous to the Biden administration as Secretary of State. And it does seem like he continues to accept the premise that America is a racist place, as the Chinese insist. I don't even know if the Chinese believe this, Secretary. I think they're just quoting Black Lives Matter to try to divide the country. And we seem to be going along with it. From watching from your vantage point, do you have any advice for the former Secretary, or any thoughts on what's going on? Or advice from the former Secretary to the current one?
I have advice for every American leader. The Chinese Communist Party is intent on becoming a global hegemon, and they want to change the way we live here in the United States. They want us to live in the way they do, with no religious freedom, with a massive surveillance state, with a Marxist-Leninist big government ideology where there's no such thing as a private company. That's the mission set that Xi Jinping and the Chinese leadership have. And when they use language like they used in Anchorage, where they quote BLM and they say that America's in decline and we're a racist nation, right? We can't because quote George Floyd, end of quote. We know that's not true. American leaders have to stand up for the central understandings that made our country so darn special, and we'll continue to do so for the next 250 years if we're not afraid. We never in the Trump administration apologized for the United States. We traveled the world. I traveled the world on behalf of President Trump and the American people, making the case that America is the most exceptional nation in the history of civilization, that we were going to put America first, and that we were going to deliver good outcomes for ourselves and for our friends and allies around the world. But they had to respect us, and they had to recognize that we were going to do the right thing for our own people. We can't acknowledge what the Chinese Communist Party either foist upon us or actually believes that we are a nation in decline and a racist country. We're not.
Well,
it's untrue. And not only the Secretary of State, but every American leader needs to defend our nation.
I would imagine that your top priorities, probably diplomatically and geopolitically, would be China, perhaps. To a close second might be what's going on in Afghanistan with our botched pullout there. But it's clear what it is for the Biden administration. It's climate change, or is it? We watched Joe Biden fall asleep during a climate change summit yesterday. You would think if it's really this threat to humanity, he would be able to stay awake. And China's not there. The world's biggest polluter that is, building coal-fired power plants as we're having this conversation. Your reaction to any of this?
So let's talk about climate change. It is, in fact, the administration's top priority. They've said it is, and then, who's the first senior American leader in the administration to meet with the Chinese? It's not Secretary Blinken. It's not President Biden. It's the climate czar, John Kerry. He meets with Vladimir Putin first. They are running around on the leading edge of their foreign policy, talking about climate change, sacrificing important American ideals and security interests for a lie, from a promise from the Russians or a promise from the Chinese that they're going to reduce carbon emissions. They're no more going to do that than a man in the moon. It's just not in their offing, right? You talked about building a coal-fired power plant. As we speak, they build one a week. These folks aren't going to do what the Biden team wants done. Biden team wants to destroy our economy in exchange for a pot of gold, this ephemeral idea that somehow we're going to get to net zero by 2050. This is foolish. It doesn't have to be. And to lead with this as foreign policy is an enormous national security mistake as well. These countries aren't going to make any change. We reduced our carbon output in our 4 years of the Trump administration in a way that no other country did. Not because we pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, but in spite of that fact, right? We do it because we're a good, noble people with good technology, not because of some promise one makes at an international cocktail party that the president can't stay awake for.
Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, he is also involved with candidates and backing certain candidates via CavPAC, which you guys go to cavpac.com to check that out. The co-chair, the National Republican Redistricting Trust with Chris Christie, important work. There, last one for today. There's going to be a lot of conversation probably for you over the next year or so, whether or not you'll run for president, even if Donald Trump runs. And I don't want to, we don't need to delve into that too much now. I'm sure we will in subsequent interviews. But it does seem like the media does want to divide you from President Trump at the moment. Whether you run or you both run, it does seem like the way the media is talking about it this week is that this seems like the agenda. Are you picking up on that, or is that just me?
Yeah, no, Alex, look, they're coming after President Trump and I in our relationship. I have deep gratitude to him. They did it for 4 years, Alex. You saw it, right? Every time I'd go on TV, it wouldn't be about the important national security issue. It'd be like,
sure,
Mr. Secretary, well, President Trump said X. What did you agree with X? And they would try to divide and create separation because they know that the work that we did together was glorious and important and deeply inconsistent with their understanding of America and not the one that I think most Americans share. So, yeah, I've seen it. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. For the moment, we are all focused on making sure that we win today in Virginia and next November all across America. When we do that and get that right, everything will fall into place.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, always appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, sir. Have a good day.
You too. We'll take a quick break. We'll take some calls and come back.
The Will Cow Majority.
Under Donald Trump.